Man.
Thank you for coming down. Let's just come on. Yeah.
No, it's a big pleasure to be here, man. It's been always a dream to come here and to be here and also spend some time here is really awesome, man.
Cool. Let's just talk quickly about your trip and why you came down and your Joburg and Cape Town gig. You want to just tell us about that quickly?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I was happy that the festival Rockin' and Daisy invited me over. So when they asked me to play here, I was really happy to come down and stay longer. And you know, for me, the goal was to not just only play, but also take a little bit of your culture with me and to experience. So yeah, it was so cool to hook up with you as well. Trenton showed me a lot. In the scene, we went out to the townships and to a party, and that was so cool. And I've met so many cool musicians already, and it's really great to see, that there's, just like people being so talented and making so much good stuff over here. And it's clearly to see that, circumstances really, do make a lot of things happen or limit a lot of things. So. I'm really happy to be here and to play my music.
Amazing. How was the Daisy set?
It's crazy. Yeah, I played 2 hours and I think I've had one of my best sets ever. Honestly, I've been telling everyone I was so happy.
He's not just saying that now. He told me that yesterday as well. So he's not just trying to make you feel good, okay?
No, it's no. I mean, I play a lot, and sometimes you really have those moments when everything goes right and it's the right vibe and you read the right moment and everything comes together. The people, the music, and then I'll just choose the right records at the right time. So that was cool.
So let's go back and fill people in on some of the things you've done. You've obviously done remixes for massive artists, and we'll get to that. But tell us about how you started in music. What was the first? When did the light go on?
Well, I was just a music lover like everyone. I had I have a 10 years older brother, so in the end of the 80s, he was listening to all those early house records. And so as a kid, I always loved that music without knowing it was house. And then when I was 11, 12, I started to play drums. It was in the school. It was in the cellar, and no one taught it to me. I was just listening to like records I loved and tried to replay it. And so I had a little band there, but that was just like school stuff. And then when I was like 13, 14, I started to buy records, and I started to buy all those records I knew from my brother. So I worked 2 jobs at the same time to finance the money for the vinyl.
The addiction.
Yeah, and I really know it's true. I really got addicted. I went to the record shop almost every day, and then so there was like a house techno record shop in Hamburg where I grew up. And then at one point, my boss, or my upcoming boss, he was like, "Yo, you're here every day. Why don't you start working here?" So I started working in a record shop, and that for me was really, a big thing because I got in touch with much more of the music. I was able to dig in the labels, and I started to build my record collection. And then one day, really, like my boss, he knew I was able to mix, and I even tried to sell my mixtapes in his shop, which is kind of stupid because who would buy a mixtape from some guy who works in a record shop, But anyway, he was like. He was giving me the chance to do a warm-up gig in one of the famous house clubs. It was like a 500 venue house club, and it was a birthday party from one of the local DJs, really famous DJ back then. So I was opening up, I was in the club, it was empty, and I was playing like more deep house, Chicago house and stuff like this, and slowly the club filled up, and people were always like, "Who's this kid?" And I mean, I was super slimmy, and I was like 16, so people started talking about me, and really that night really changed my life, because after that, like a lot of people started booking me, and I got into producing as well.
Well, when did that change happen? How did you realize that you wanted to do more than just play tunes?
I think it was really that one night because, like, I really felt like, you know, music was always the biggest part of my life, and I felt, really connected. But I never knew because, like, your parents, they want you to finish school, and
Get a real job.
yeah, my brother, he was kind of crazy, so he didn't really do well in school. So I tried, to be, I don't know, the better brother in a way. But no, that night, really, I thought this is actually it, um, yeah, and I was my first tracks. I started to produce them on, I just actually it was more like DJing, like I had like meshing up two records and then recording that into a shitty computer, and then after that I had one computer and I started to make tracks on that, and I got more and more DJ gigs. So from those DJ gigs I would buy more vinyl and buy my first drum machine as well, like the classic 808 drum machine. So I started to make my first tracks with that as well, and things start to build on that.
Did you find that as you were slowly starting to get into, there was a lot of knowledge sharing? Because sometimes we're not so good at like sharing the knowledge, you know? Did you find you had mentors and people that actually sort of took you under their wing and helped you grow and develop?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think it's really important to have a mentor or someone that helps you, and for me, that's one of the reasons why I also run a label nowadays. To I find young producers and I want to help them, because I have back then it was my boss from the record shop, and it was just locally, and there was no internet at that time, or I mean, I didn't have a computer, but like it just started to grow. It was like in the end of the 90s, so. Yeah, I think it's important to have someone that helps you out, and because you can't do everything. You have a great talent and you make music, but you can't do everything at the same time. So of course I was happy that there were people who support me, and eventually it got a word around. First of all, it was just DJ gigs locally in my town, or like a little bit outside, like in another city in Germany, like Berlin or Cologne. And then after I started producing, the music was basically just for DJs. So I started to send my music out to other labels, and I had a DJ gig with like two big, well-known DJs back then, like DJ Hell from Gigolo Records, and I gave him my demos, and the next day he called me. He's like, "Oh shit, this is awesome. I want to put it out." So my first record came out in 2004, and then I put out another record on another label as well, and it was just like EPs with a few tracks. And then slowly after, I really thought, because I was making so much music, I had like hundreds of tracks, and it always took a little bit long to release the music on other labels. And I thought, if I make my own label, I can just put out stuff all the time. So I had an idea for my label, and I had so much music, so I thought, okay, I'm gonna do it myself now. And I started to put all my money into pressing vinyl, because back then it was just when Beatport started, but there was not really much MP3 around yet. So I was pressing vinyl, like 1,000 vinyl, and I was sending promos to, like, I would pack up like packages and find out the address from all the big DJs and send them directly via post and get a fax back with feedback and stuff like this. And that was like, for the first 4 or 5 releases, they were just my own with different names and different projects. And that's how my label Boys Noise Records started, really. And one thing after another, just started, because a lot of people started to play my music, just DJs. It was just club music only. And then I was really lucky, because MySpace came up, and I was like, oh shit, finally I can put my music in the internet, and more people outside of the DJs can listen to my music, because you can only listen to my music in certain record shops. So after that, a lot of things have changed, because then people asked me to do remixes, and bands started to ask me to do remixes, and yeah.
Let's talk about some of those, because I know that every time I hear about other people you've remixed. I was like, really? So just some of them off the top of my head, like NERD, Daft Punk, Chemical Brothers. Any more? I mean, you've done some really big remixes. What remix is one of the highlights for you in terms of tracks you put out?
I mean, yeah, of course, doing an official remix for Daft Punk was crazy, of course, because they were definitely one of my influences. Like that first album when that came out in '96, that was one of my biggest. That was one of my first electronic albums as well, and one of the guys, Thomas Bangalter, he had his own label as well called Roulé. And on that label, he put out more like harder techno stuff, but really minimal. And that really shaped me as a DJ. Like when I DJ, I play mostly like jacking, housey techno stuff, but a bit more harder. And yeah, so that was cool. And I always enjoyed to do remixes for other music other than electronic, because I always found it more harder to remix a house or techno track rather than like a band or like I don't know, Feist, for instance. You know, something that hasn't anything to do with music, with electronic music.
You didn't get that. I didn't either.
So yeah, yeah, I always loved doing that, and yeah, yeah.
And when you approach a remix, you just get the separates, and do you try and remix in like a certain style? Do you have like a remix style, or is it just quite varied?
I mean, yeah, you know, so when you do a remix, they send you the individual elements of the original song, so you get the vocals, the guitar, or the drums, or whatever. And most of the time, you know, all the remixes I've agreed to were remixes for people that I like, or the other way around. I would never do a remix for someone I think is not cool. So I always thought, okay, it's important to have, you know, my name next to something.
So do you have like
cool.
a coolometer, like you see, you measure
Yeah,
it,
I mean, you know, yeah. And most of the time, you know, I have an idea already when I hear the original song, or I just take the vocal and build new music around it. But you know, yeah, it really depends. Like most of the time, I have an idea already when I hear the song.
I want to talk about work ethic, because you know, as I said, it's 80% will, 20% skill, etc. And you said that you were like mailing out albums and vinyl to DJs and just doing it yourself, DIY. And obviously, you're part of the generation of the whole transformation into the digital space. How important is it to be on your game in that sense?
Yeah, it is true. You know, like there's, you know, that's what I said before as well. There's so many talented producers down here, you know, and as I said, I think, you know, circumstances can limit yourself. But I think, you know, if you always think like, man, he's doing this, I can do it too, you know, like I think this is a good motivation for anyone, you know, like if you think, you know, the drive to make something and to reach out to people, I think that's important too. But you know what, I mean, I didn't learn anything, you know, I didn't learn sound engineering or producing. I really taught everything myself, and just for the love of the music and the love for what I do. And I think, you know, good stuff. And if you create your own sound, or if you find a way to stick out of what everyone else is doing, you know, I think that helps a lot. Because, you know, simple example is, you know, you go to a record shop, or you listen to 100 records, and in the end you just buy 3 records, or you just like 3 records because they sound different or they have something special. And I think this is the most important, really, to have to try to have your own sound. And then, yeah, you're right, you know, you gotta, if you believe in it, you gotta push it, and you gotta be behind it. And for me, there was never anything I had to think about. It just came out of me naturally.
So tell us a bit more about your label, because one thing that's obviously very interesting running a label as an artist is it gives you a bigger power base. It gives you an opportunity to connect with lots of more people. How much time do you spend on that compared to working on your own stuff? And can you just give us a few, what kind of style you're putting out through that? How are you mentoring these young guys you're talking about?
So yeah, I mean, I basically spend every day doing my label. What I do most is I just look out for new music. You know, nowadays I go on SoundCloud, I check out producers on SoundCloud, or I listen to demos people send me, or friends of mine send me stuff from their friends because they say, "Yo, you should check it out. He's good," and you know. There's many ways of getting my attention, and most of it is when I hear something that sounds different. But yeah, it is every day, and I talk to all of the artists on my label a lot. I've signed around 10 to 15 other young DJs and producers, and it's basically everything electronic. It's a lot of house, it's a lot of techno, it's more electro. There's some rap we're doing as well, like Spank Rock from the US, or there's this guy Leaf. We put out his EP. It's more like tropical rap. I don't know, sea punk. That was last year.
Sounds dangerous.
Yeah, but like you know, I'm really open to anything good quality electronic music. It's the same when I DJ. You know, like when I started DJing, I always like to mix up different things, you know, like play a house record and then play something more dub or a disco record or play some hip hop with it. And for me, there is no real boundaries, you know. So I do the same on my label, you know, like to mix up stuff, and I think it's the best.
You did a track with. I don't know, Snoop Dogg, as it says online, but I don't know if you did it before he became Snoop Lion, or is it Snoop Dogg, or is it Snoop Lion?
It's Snoop Dogg.
It's Snoop Dogg. Tell us about how that came about and the experience, because it's quite an interesting story.
Yeah, that's a funny story, because...
has everyone heard the track? Okay, no, that's not the one. That's YouTube.
I wish it was dropped like it hot. No, the track is called Got It. It's on my last album. It's the first and only collaboration I've ever done. I always thought collaborations were kind of lame, and I want to put out original stuff without anyone singing on it. Anyway, he asked me, his label asked me to do a official remix for him for the track Sexual Seduction. That was a few years ago. And I did it, and they accepted it, and they put it out, and then 1 year after, I came across Twitter, and I didn't know how it worked, so I was like, okay, cool, now I can talk to everyone. So the first thing I did on Twitter was like @ Snoop Dogg, and I was like, hey man, did you ever check out the remix I've done for you? And he replied right away. He was like, yeah man, I love it, send me more beats. And then he sent me a contact to one of his managers, and so I kept sending beats, like, I don't know, besides my own music, I make a lot of other beats and stuff that I wouldn't put out under my name, but so I sent him a lot of like rap beats with like electronic elements and stuff, and it never happened to get him recording or anything, because he was on a big label, and the big label gets the producers, and you know, it works a bit different. So, but he liked all the beats that I was sending him, and I knew that from the contact he gave me. So I kept in touch with this guy, and we actually made friends. When I played in LA, I met up with that guy, and he was like, "Yo, he loves your stuff, but you know, it's really hard to get him record over it and stuff." So it took like 2-3 years until he actually left the big label. And then he was like, yo, man, now is a good time. And I sent him like a really fresh new beat, which I thought he has to love it. And he did, apparently. And he was listening to it, and he's like, yo, man, I want to meet this guy. And so I met him in a club, and we smoked a joint and stuff. And
of course.
I know, honestly, besides that, best spliffs I've ever smoked in my life.
And
crazy.
And he didn't roll it, huh?
No, yeah, he's got that really young, skinny white guy who rolls joints for him all day. It's true. And funny thing is, so I was hanging out one day and like they got some like where the management is. There's some offices and he was around and they were watching some basketball game. I don't know. And then he was like, "Yo, later tonight we're gonna go to his place and record the track." So he had already the instrumental. He knew it, and so late at night we went to one of his apartments, and it was really like this little shack and like his friends were hanging out. It really felt like being 15 again and, going to Mapuche to buy some weed, that kind of vibe. And then the guy the guy who rolls his joints, he turned out to be his engineer as well. So he was like, "Yo, give me the track." And he put it in Pro Tools. They set up the mic by the toilet in his little apartment, and then, but nothing happened. Like we were waiting till like 5 in the morning, and nothing happened. I was like, and it was like after the 10th time already, my friend from his management was like, "It's gonna happen, it's gonna happen." I was like, "No, man, it's never gonna happen." So apparently he fall asleep in the other room, and
You were afraid to go knock.
yeah, no. But yeah, then I left, and then the next morning he called me. He's like, "Yo, Snoop just called me. He's recording on it right now." I'm like, "What? This is crazy!" And like, yeah, so apparently he got up, in his underwear. I don't know, like
Split in
record right
hand.
away. It's crazy shit. So yeah, and then later that day I collected the stems and worked on it at home in Berlin, and yeah,
It's
he
a great,
loved it.
it's a great story when the industry has become such a big industry that ultimately creativity can happen anytime, anywhere, and it's very inspiring to hear that story.
It's crazy. Yeah, I thought the same. Like, and especially with Snoop. You think you meet someone that big, and like you go to those fancy LA studios. I've been in that too, and it's a weird vibe, and it's anyway. Like, yeah, it was really magical.
Amazing. So another sort of big, prolific artist that you're very close with, who was out here recently for a British music workshop and to play was Skrillex. Yeah, come on, give Skrillex a hand. Tell us how that meeting happened, and I know you have a project with him. You could tell us a bit about that as well.
Yeah, I've met Sonny a few times on a festival because we played a lot of festivals together in the US in like 2011. That's when he started to get big as well, and he always would came up to me. He's like, "Yo, man, you're my favorite DJ. I love your music," and I was like, "Cool, man. That's awesome." And thanks a lot. I like your stuff too. So that was the first time, and
Bit of
then we
backslapping and
Yeah.
hugging and
yeah, and then last year, um,
were there any joints involved?
yeah, always. No. But yeah, last year I took some time off for the first time. I spent the summer in Berlin and was working on my new album. So he was playing in Berlin. I was just like, "Yo, man, come over to my studio, hang out." So he came around and we were just listening to music, and I didn't really plan to do anything. And we were just vibing and listening to music. And in my studio I have a lot of drum machines and stuff, and I think a lot of the stuff he's never seen. Like he's never seen like a real 808 drum machine stuff. So he's like, "Oh shit, let's record some of that." So we recorded some of it, and then I gave him the stuff. He puts it in his computer. He messed around with it, and we came up with like three tracks, and they were really good. Like we were like, "Oh, this rocks!" Like I was playing it out, he was playing it out, and we didn't want it to call it like Boys Noise or Skrillex or something like this, because I don't know. And then few months later, we decided to put it out under a new name as Dog Blood. But in the beginning we didn't tell anyone. That was last year in August. We put out 2 tracks for like 8 months, 9 months. Nobody knew it was us really, besides maybe some really fans that know everything, But we didn't announce it. And then earlier this year in March, we did our first DJ gig together on a festival in the States. And that was the first time when we announced, yo, we have this project called Dog Blood.
It was Ultra, yeah?
That was Ultra,
Yeah, okay.
And then we made some new tracks this year as well, and we just put them out actually.
So you performed with Snoop at Ultra and with Skrillex.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Nice.
It was
Very
really
nice.
crazy, yeah.
Let's talk about the live show. I know you put emphasis on lighting and stuff on stage, and how did that come about? How did you realize that you needed to evolve and create a spectacle, if you like?
Well, I've been DJing on most of the festivals already a few times, and every time I DJ, I don't really like to play my old tracks. I rather play like something they don't know, or my new tracks they don't know, or new stuff on my label. But when people go to the festival and they see your name, and especially when you have your own music as well, and I've put out 2-3 albums, so a lot of people expected to hear my music, and so I thought, okay, I gotta create a live show where I just play my own music. So I was last year again, when I was working on my last album, I was thinking, okay, how can I create this and to make it fun? So I was working on a live show where I can have fun with my own music and have all my stems separately and remix it live or edit it live. And so yeah, I came up with that, and that was cool, and I really love it too. And it's good to have now both worlds, where it's more like a band where I can play my own music, or I do a DJ set where it's just playing music from other people basically.
Tell us about your perception of the South African industry before you came down. Obviously, you were starting to make noise overseas. Had you heard a lot of stuff before you came down? Are you feeling the energy coming from the south up?
Yeah, I mean, I knew there was always a good scene down here. Even a few years ago, one of the guys on my label, his name is Jetrotronic. He came down here, he played here, he was telling me this scene is crazy, there's a really good underground scene. That was around 2007 and 2008. And he recorded a track with Spurk. There's a famous...
Spook Matambo.
Yeah, and we put it out on Boys Noise Records. That was like 3-4 years ago. And it was always for me like a dream to come here, and I knew, there's so much talented people here and so much great musicians, and obviously it's hard for us to find out, and I know some labels, they put out stuff like Hyperdub from the UK, they're great. So I was really, really excited to come here, and for me, it was really important to take some time and, meet people and meet producers and meet DJs and to get a sense for the vibe. And I've got to say, I'm really blown away because, like, you really got your own sound here, and you created something crazy, like a good house scene, a good house sound, which is different, and I'm I really want to try to get more involved with that and, try to help out or find some guys, put out some. I don't know, just I'm really feeling.
We'll be on the phone to you hustling you.
But I'm really feeling, there's a lot of will and there's a lot of potential and there's a lot of talent, and it just needs, people to find out about it and ways to find out about it. And I think it's not that far, I think it's that close for people to be like, what the fuck, we missed all of this all the years, so yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a very genuine thing, and I've enjoyed spending the last few days with you because I can really feel a real genuine passion and willingness to engage with us. So thank you very much for that. And you could have got straight on a plane and flown straight out, but you spent another like 5-6 days here, and that means a lot to us that you're here.
Thank you. No,
Cool.
Thank you for bringing me here, man. I really appreciate it.
Cool.